What if the most dangerous moment in a relationship isn't the fight, not the betrayal, not even the moment trust breaks? What if the most irreversible moment is when the empath goes quiet? No anger, no explanations, just silence. Because when an empath stops caring, something ancient awakens inside them. Something Carl Jung warned about long before modern psychology had a name for it. Stay with me, because once you understand what happens next, you'll realize why this moment doesn't end relationships. It ends illusions. Most people misunderstand empaths. They think empathy is softness. They think compassion means tolerance without limits. They think care is endless. Carl Jung knew better. Jung understood that the human psyche does not break the way glass does, it transforms. And the empath's breaking point is not collapse, it is evolution. You see, empaths don't just feel emotions, they inhabit them. They sense tension before words are spoken. They feel sadness hiding behind smiles. They carry emotional atmospheres like weight in their chest. And for a long time, they believe this is their purpose to carry, to heal, to endure. But Jung discovered a brutal truth most people never learn until it's too late. Anything that is overused eventually turns into its opposite. The silent cost of being an empath. Empaths live in a state of constant emotional labor. They translate moods. They soften conflict. They absorb pain so others don't have to. They give without keeping score until their body, mind, and soul begin keeping score. Jung called this psychological compensation. When one part of the psyche is overdeveloped, like excessive compassion, another part is suppressed. And suppression doesn't erase anything, it waits. The empath suppresses anger, suppresses boundaries, suppresses self interest. They tell themselves they didn't mean it, that they're hurting. If I just love harder, it will change. But Jung discovered that the psyche keeps balance at all costs, and when imbalance lasts too long, it corrects itself violently. In Antidromia, when caring flips, Jung called this reversal in Antidromia the moment when a dominant trait transforms into its opposite. This is the empath's threshold. And here's the part most people never see coming. When an empath stops caring, it doesn't fade slowly, it ends instantly. One day they are still trying, still hoping, still explaining themselves, and then nothing. No rage, no confrontation, just emotional absence. This is not numbness, this is clarity. Why this moment is irreversible. When the empath reaches this point, something fundamental changes. They are no longer emotionally available to be convinced. The stories stop working. The excuses stop landing. The apologies sound rehearsed. Why? Because hope has exited the room. Jung understood that hope can disturb perception more than fear ever. And when hope dies, reality steps in. The empath sees patterns instead of promises, behavior instead of intentions, truth instead of potential. This is the moment people describe as a cold, but Jung would call it the shadow awakens. Carl Jung believed that true psychological health comes from integrating the shadow, the parts of ourselves we were taught to reject. For empaths, the shadow is not cruelty. It is the ability to say protection. It is the ability to say, ow, ow, you know, you don't got access to me anymore. When an empath stops caring, they are not losing empathy. They are reclaiming it from people who exploited it. This is not bitterness. This is self-respect finally finding a voice. Why empaths feel guilty for choosing themselves? Here's what makes this transformation painful. Empaths were conditioned to believe that caring equals worth. They learned love through endurance. They proved loyalty through suffering. So when they finally choose themselves, it feels like betrayal. But Jung discovered something devastatingly important. Self-abandonment is psychological violence, and the empath has been committing that violence quietly for years. When they stop, the guilt is simply the echo of old conditioning dying. The breakthrough that looks like detachment to the outside world, it looks like distance. To the empath, it feels like oxygen. They stop over-explaining, stop defending their feelings, stop negotiating their boundaries. Not because they don't care, but because they finally care enough about themselves. Jung called this moment psychological sovereignty, the reclaiming of inner authority. And once this happens, the relationship can never return to what it was. Because the empath has crossed a threshold that does not allow backward movement. There is a reason manipulators panic when an empath goes quiet. It's not because the empath becomes aggressive, because they become unreachable. And Carl Jung knew this was the moment when power dynamics collapse completely. Manipulators survive on emotional access, they rely on guilt, on obligation, on the empath's endless benefit of the doubt. They don't need control through force, they control through hope. Jung observed that the most effective manipulation happens when someone believes that suffering has meaning. Empaths believe that love can redeem anything, until it doesn't. When emotional supply runs dry, when an empath stops caring, manipulation stops working, the guilt trips fall flat. The love bombing feels obvious. The victim stories sound recycled. Why? Because emotional hooks require emotional availability, and the empath has withdrawn those completely. This is what Jung called emotional detachment, not coldness, but